And Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern spoke to our reporter Jackson Williams a short time ago. Here's what she had to say.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time. When you addressed the media a couple of hours ago, the most up-to-date information was that 8 people remained unaccounted for, believed to be dead, 5 others confirmed dead, 31 in hospital. Is that information still up to date?
That's the best information we have available at this time. Just to give some context, obviously, in the immediate aftermath of the eruption, we had several helicopters who made a courageous decision to return and land on the volcano. They were able to pick up, to bring back to the mainland those who were on the island, many of which obviously are critically ill. Those individuals have then been located across New Zealand in burns units across the country, and so that accounts for the 31 that we've said are in hospital at this time. Our job, of course, and the job that police are working on diligently is in reconciling the nationalities and identification of those who are in hospital in order to identify those who are currently missing.
How's that work currently going?
So that's something obviously the police are working closely with our district health boards, our hospitals, on that information. Look, I do need to commend our emergency services. They worked very, very quickly to make sure people got the critical care that they needed where they needed it, and now in the aftermath, of course, working through all of the information we need to be able to give more information to victims' families, but also to those who want to provide consulate assistance.
The actions of those helicopter pilots, I guess there's no other way to describe what they did than to say it was incredibly brave to put themselves in such a dangerous, precarious situation.
It was incredibly courageous. So at the moment, information I have is that we had a Westpac helicopter, a rescue helicopter that was able to land, but that actually there were also 2 private helicopters that landed as well as an operator. And so all of them risked a huge amount to do that, and I'm sure people want to give them that recognition that they deserve.
You've been in regular contact with the Australian Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, yesterday afternoon. I believe you've spoken with him this morning. What was discussed?
Again, I provided with him the best information that we have available to us at this time. As has been reported, we understand that there were 24 Australians who may have been caught up in the eruption. Again, I've shared with him the numbers that we have, that the police have provided to date. Obviously, authorities are doing their very best to then identify the nationalities of those who are in our hospital care at present. I undertook to PM Morrison that we'd be providing Australian officials with the hospitals that Australians are located within, so that assistance can be provided directly to them, alongside, of course, the care that New Zealanders are providing.
Australian Federal Police liaison officers are on their way over to New Zealand to assist. Prime Minister Morrison, I believe, or Australian authorities have offered the assistance of disaster identification, victim identification personnel. Have any other offers of assistance been made?
Look, at the moment, to the best of my knowledge, we've had that offer, just the offer of the victim identification, but actually the offers that have come from Australia have been broad. Essentially, any help that we need, just ask, and that's something that we know all well with our Australian counterparts. At present, of course, we do have our own victim identification teams. They're at the ready, but I'll be leaving those local forces on the ground to liaise directly with the Australian Federal Police around any needs that they may have.
And sadly, the awful reality is those teams have been through this before in New Zealand. This is not the first mass casualty event we've had in recent history.
No, devastatingly, that is the case. That, of course, New Zealand has had those experiences, not only domestically, but we have had New Zealanders who have been part of, for instance, natural disasters offshore, where they've been part of victim identification teams. So they do have expertise. We just, of course, hope that we'd never have to use it. Can I say to our Australian family, you know, there are no 2 countries closer, and we're devastated at what has happened here, and particularly want to acknowledge those from Australia who have been caught up in this horrific incident.
Are you hoping to visit, obviously, the patients in hospital? They're in hospitals right across the country, even in the South Island,
yes.
just so we can make the most, we can utilise the best possible medical expertise. Will you be visiting some of them?
Oh, look, that's really, for me, the primary focus has to be on them having the care, the support they need, and focusing on families. So at an appropriate time, I am going to see first responders this morning just to get a sense of what they encountered. But our focus is supporting the families, many of whom are likely to travel to New Zealand, ensure they've got the care they need, that their family members have the care they need, and that they're well supported in hospital. You're right, we have burns units across the country. We've been utilising those. So the fact that victims are dispersed is because we're making use of the best expertise and care that we have in New Zealand for them.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson has tweeted that he's been in touch. Has he been in personal touch with you?
I received a message from Prime Minister Johnson and acknowledged that, also that I've had contact from Prime Minister Trudeau as well. Obviously, most of my contact through phone calls have been with PM Morrison, but we are grateful for those messages, and we'll continue to stay in close contact with those affected. As we've said, nationals at the moment who are affected range from Australia, the United States, the UK, China and Malaysia.
Just finally, within hours of yesterday's volcanic eruption, you made a decision that it was appropriate, it was the right thing for you to travel here to Whakatane. Why is that, and what do you see as your purpose here on the ground?
Essentially to ensure that those here who at an operational level are making sure that our critically injured have the care they need, that's being well coordinated, and also that the police who are undertaking a recovery process, that they have all the support that they need. So just making sure that that is the case was a primary focus for us, and making sure that we have the best information being provided as possible. I'll be returning to Wellington very shortly.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time. Such an incredibly tough time for this country.
And my thoughts obviously with our family in Australia too.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister.
Thank you.